Over 100 non-governmental organizations are raising alarms over the mass starvation of Palestinians in Gaza due to the Israeli blockade, as the death toll from famine and malnutrition in the Strip keeps rising. In Honduras, the President of the National Assembly, Luis Redondo, declared the adoption of the transmission of preliminary electoral results null and void. And in Venezuela, the International Forum for a Humane Humanity Balance of Universe is underway in Caracas to make a call for peace and the end of genocide against the Palestinian people. Hello and welcome to From the South. I'm Alejandra Garcia from teleSUR Studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. Over 100 non-governmental organizations are raising alarms over the mass starvation of Palestinians in Gaza due to the Israeli blockade, as the death toll from famine and malnutrition in the Strip keeps rising. In a statement issued on Wednesday, 109 aid and human rights groups called on governments to take urgent actions against Israel, including by demanding an immediate and permanent ceasefire and the lifting of all restrictions on humanitarian aid. The statement denounces the Israeli blockade of tons of food, clean water, medical supplies and other items that sit untouched just outside the Strip, and accused Tel Aviv of creating chaos, starvation and death. In this context, the Gazan hospital reported on Tuesday that 21 children died from malnutrition or starvation in the last 72 hours in the Palestinian territory. The 2.4 million inhabitants of Gaza are facing severe shortages of food and basic necessities, as humanitarian aid distribution centers are regularly attacked. The Palestinian Health Ministry in Gaza informed 111 people have now died from famine and malnutrition in recent weeks, most of them children. The United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres condemned the horror in Gaza, where a level of death and destruction unprecedented in recent history has been reached. In addition, the organization accused the Israeli army of killing more than 1,000 people waiting for help since the end of May, most of them near the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation's facilities. In Tel Aviv, Israeli activists gathered in Habima Square for a march to the Defense Ministry headquarters, carrying banners and mottos such as "Hunger is a war crime," "We are all responsible, it is being done in our names." Protesters rejected the genocidal actions in Gaza and demanded the culprits to hold accountability. In June 2025, the United Nations condemned Israel's use of food as a weapon in Gaza and called it a war crime. In Lebanon, dozens of demonstrators gathered outside the Egyptian embassy in the capital Beirut on Wednesday in solidarity with the Palestinian people. Dozens of social activists and other civilians waved Palestinian flags to protest the Israeli aggression on Gaza and its current humanitarian aid blockade. In addition, demonstrators accused the Egyptian government of supporting Tel Aviv's onslaught on the Palestinian enclave. Furthermore, they demanded the opening of the border between Egypt and the Gaza Strip to allow the entry of humanitarian aid. Columbia University in the United States has imposed severe punishments, including expulsion and revocation of academic degrees on students who participated in protests against Israel attacks on Gaza. The student activist group Columbia University Apartheid Divest said in a statement that nearly 80 students have been expelled or suspended for up to 3 years for their involvement in anti-war protests. On Tuesday, Columbia said in a statement that its latest punishment of students relates to the disruption of Butler Library in May 2025. The group Columbia University Apartheid Divest said the university's sanctions on students far exceed precedent for acts of teaching or occupations for buildings unrelated to Palestine. The United Nations World Food Programme (WFP) has warned of the possibility of reducing food rations in South Sudan due to a lack of financial resources. According to a report, as of September, the WFP will only be able to assist 2.5 million people, equivalent to 30% of those suffering from severe hunger in the African nation. In addition, the organization points out that the lack of funding could further worsen the living conditions of millions of individuals living in communities without support to face hunger. Last week, the agency announced a request for $274 million to continue supporting the people suffering from acute food insecurity until the end of 2025. Congolese local outlets reported that at least 10 artisanal miners lost their lives and many went missing due to a collapse at the Lomera gold mine in South Kivu. They further revealed that the mudslide damaged a dozen gold mine shafts, so it caused the death of at least 10 artisanal miners and a non-determined number of workers went missing. Therefore, rescue teams continue to search for survivors, but experts estimate the death toll is likely to surge. In this context, the area has been under the control of M23 rebels since they captured large mineral-rich eastern national areas earlier this year. In Ukraine, hundreds of citizens demonstrated against the law that puts an end to the independence of the National Anti-Corruption Bureau and the Specialized Anti-Corruption Prosecutor's Office. After President Volodymyr Zelensky signed the document, over 1,000 people gathered at the presidential office to demand the repeal of the law. Protests also took place in Lviv, Odessa and Dnipro, making it one of the largest demonstrations against the Zelensky administration since the conflict with Russia began. The regulation subjugates the Anti-Corruption Prosecutor's Office, and the Prosecutor General has the right to supervise National Anti-Corruption Bureau investigations, refer cases to that body, and give it instructions. Russian and Ukrainian delegations are about to meet on Wednesday evening in Istanbul to finalize draft memorandums for reaching breakthroughs on a solution to their prolonged conflict. Earlier, Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov had confirmed the meeting today. Likewise, the diplomat described the encounter would not be an easy road, as the Kyiv regime had not accepted the grounded demands of Russia for a ceasefire. However, Ukraine is still in an unfavorable position at the conflict. Previously, both nations agreed on conducting a prisoner exchange of 1,000 servicemen, including the seriously ill and those younger than 25 years old from each side. And now we have a short break coming up, but first remember you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English, where you'll find news in different formats, news updates and more. We'll be right back, stay with us. Welcome back to From the South. In Honduras, the President of the National Assembly, Luis Redondo, declared the adoption of the transmission of preliminary electoral results null and void. Luis Redondo reviewed electoral fraud and drug trafficking links with the National Party during Juan Orlando Hernandez's government. Redondo also said that the National Electoral Committee was given a fraudulent system for transmitting and disclosing electoral results. This was in violation of the Constitution, the law, and the electoral process. It was also an usurpation of the legislator's powers. Redondo said the National Electoral Committee's decision was null and void and urged those responsible to cease their actions in view of the possibility of criminal liability. In Argentina, the ultra-right government of Javier Milei eliminated Tuesday the National Registry for Community Dining Rooms and Picnic Areas, RENACOM. The registry was the body where the associations providing food services to the most vulnerable sector were listed. It was created on July 8, 2020, in order to provide maximum transparency in the allocation of public resources, as well as to have an objective and statistical view of the number of physical spaces destined to community food assistance. According to the government, the decision responds to the need to optimize public resources in order to guarantee its efficient, timely, transparent and responsible use. In Peru, various social organizations held a march in defense of labor rights, against corruption, the increase in crime and the demand the resignation of President Dina Boluarte. In the framework of the Independence Day holidays, workers, citizens and various organizations carried banners expressing their rejection to corruption and organized crime that affects the population. The president of the National Confederation of Mototaxis, Mario Arce, also announced that his minor transport guild will mobilize in San Juan del Urigancho to demand the mayor of the district to change the police command for the increase in murders of drivers. The former president of Brazil, Jair Bolsonaro, could be imprisoned after violating a ruling that prohibits him from using social networks. The arrest of the former president could be made if his participation in digital platforms is proven. The court gave a 24-hour deadline for Jair Bolsonaro's defense to explain his appearance in a video broadcast on social networks where he was giving a speech to his supporters. Since July 12, 2025, Bolsonaro has been under precautionary measures as part of the judicial process against him for the attempted coup against President Luis Inácio Lula da Silva. A panic-mongering campaign to scare Brazilians into thinking Donald Trump was going to cancel the nation's GPS access backfired this week when the public was reminded that thanks to a partnership with Russia, they don't need to rely on it anymore. Our correspondent Brian Mir has more.
Tried to spark panic by spreading an unsubstantiated rumor that the Trump administration would cancel Brazil's GPS service if Jair Bolsonaro were jailed. Scientists quickly noted that thanks to a partnership with Russia, Brazil hosts the world's second largest number of ground control stations for GLONASS, Russia's geolocation system.
Today, we don't just have GPS satellites orbiting the Earth. There are clusters of satellites from what we refer to as other constellations. These satellite clusters work so that, in case there are problems with one of the constellations, the others overcome them. During the last 10-15 years, nearly all of the technological devices we use, including US devices, for example, the iPhone, are codified to receive signals from both GPS and GLONASS.
During a visit to Brazil in 2013, Presidents Vladimir Putin and Dilma Rousseff forged a partnership to install the first GLONASS ground monitoring station outside of Russia at Brasilia Federal University. Today there are 5 such stations in Brazil. Their primary function is to serve as fixed reference points that help calibrate and correct the orbits and signals of Russia's 24 GLONASS satellites.
This partnership is important because every year the Russians visit, and during this last visit we were able to increase our contact with other institutions. They put us in touch with Russian technological institutions so that we can build a new partnership in other areas of interest for our institutes and the state of Pernambuco.
In addition to highlighting the importance of the BRICS, the media scandal reminded the public that due to constellations like GLONASS, Beidou, and Galileo, the Global South is no longer held hostage to US technology the way it was 20 years ago. Brian Mir, teleSUR, Recife.
Venezuelan government is assisting over 1,500 victims in the state of Amazonas after the overflow of the Orinoco River. According to local authorities, 250 families in the region lost their homes due to the weather event and were placed in temporary shelters while the torrential rains persist. On the other hand, the national government warned that the flooding of the Orinoco River puts at risk the vital infrastructure of the region. We have a second show break coming up. Before, we are happy to announce a brand new podcast. teleSUR and the Shine Academy present Overlap, conversations from across the world on relevant issues worldwide. Tune in for its premiere on Thursday, July 24th at 7 p.m. Caracas time on all our socials at teleSUR English and at 9 p.m. Caracas time on our regular TV broadcast. See you there. Final show break now. Don't go away. Welcome back to From the South. In Venezuela, the International Forum for a Humane Humanity Balance of Universe is underway in Caracas to make a call for peace and the end of the genocide against the Palestinian people. Several delegations and social organizations are participating in this international meeting, which will take place until July 24th within the framework of the birth anniversary of independence hero Simón Bolívar. The International Forum for a Humane Humanity reiterates the importance of ceasing war and promoting actions in favor of human life. During the development of the activity, the participants will address topics on solidarity, unity of nations, and social justice of the peoples of the world. This Tuesday, the Central Bank of Venezuela assured that the country's economy grew 6.65% in the second quarter of 2025 compared to the same period last year. The institution indicated that there was a 12.27% growth in oil activity, despite the end of U.S. licenses to foreign companies and a 4.41% growth in non-oil activity. Likewise, there was a 4.51% increase in real estate, professional, scientific, technical, administrative, and support activities. These figures are important indicators of the national economy's capacity to recover from the adversities of recent years. The Petare community celebrated the Venezuelan Journalist Day by presenting the Cecilia Costa Award to recognize those who build a liberating narrative in the face of media hegemony. In the Miranda state, the mayor's office of the Sucre municipality attached importance to popular and insurgent communication, as well as the legacy of Commander Hugo Chavez in the battle of ideas and the solidarity with the Palestinian reporters in Gaza, who risk their lives every day to denounce the Israeli genocide. In this context, the work of teleSUR multimedia platform was acknowledged, which will soon celebrate its 20 years as a bastion of information serving the people. The president of teleSUR, Patricia Villegas, was recognized for her invaluable contribution to community enrichment through truthful, timely, and committed information for the majority. During these 20 years, teleSUR has been the witness and voice of countless humanitarian events. One of the most followed was the refugee crisis in the Mediterranean, a tragedy that we began to warn about from our beginnings and that worsened over time, turning the sea into a cemetery because of European migration policy. Let's see.
And beyond the borders of Latin America, the Italian Coast Guards continue intercepting ships loaded with immigrants.
In 2015, Europe was the scene of one of the biggest humanitarian crises of the 21st century. Thousands of people fled horror, but instead of finding refuge, they found a sea that swallowed their dreams. Life after life, the Mediterranean became a liquid cemetery, a reflection of the absence of safe and legal ways to flee suffering.
The situation is quite delicate and quite dramatic because the sea conditions may seem good for us, but not for the ships traveling from the Libyan coast to Europe.
The small and remote Italian island of Lampedusa was, for years, the first shore of hope and also of pain. Europe was not up to the task and its policies left the refugees on their own.
We are fighting a battle of values, of humanity, of civility. The European values came from Italy and Spain. Migrants at sea must first be saved.
The crisis spread like an unstoppable tide throughout the Mediterranean. Those who did not dare the sea walked through the Balkans, crossing mountains, fences, and closed borders. Each step opened up new routes, longer, more hidden, and more dangerous.
In the last hours, maritime rescue ships have been searching for 4 inflatable boats in the Mediterranean Sea between the coast of Morocco and southern Spain.
In 2019, Bamba arrived exhausted at an Andalusian port. A red blanket covered his cold, soaked but still living body. Almost a decade after, he still looks out to the sea with his memory alight, that sea that could have been his grave.
When I arrive here, I am always reminded of August 29, 2019. That was the day I arrived here. I will always remember that day, because it was a very hard day and a complicated day.
Europe failed to solve a historic refugee crisis, and the pressure was on civilians to cope with the rescue of lives.
An inflatable boat of about 4.5 meters with 26 people. They made a stop at the island, and when they tried to start again, the engine did not work.
Miguel Parcha was removed from his post. His crime was saving lives. More than 10,000 people rescued by his boat during the worst years of the crisis in Spain. When the institution fails, he shows the sea.
At that time, the Guardamar Polimia was the one that did the most rescues, the one that undertook the most jobs, the one that caught the most migrants daily. But they decided to get rid of the captain of the ship. And then, in September 2018, they dismissed me.
The crisis of the refugees in Europe marked a turning point. It was an unprecedented humanitarian, political, and ethical challenge. It exposed the weight of borders on human lives and revealed the deep contradictions of the values of the European Union that were shipwrecked in the waters of the Mediterranean.
And with this information, we have come to the end of this news brief, but you can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net and join us on social media. We are on Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok as well. For Telesur English, I'm Alejandra Garcia. Thank you for watching.